are we getting better? Are you less likely to be just dumped in a special ed class if you're black or brown? And is the greater understanding of what autism means helping separate out special needs kids from other reasons from kids with specifically autism-related problems?
It takes a very competent professional to really assess a child and determine those differences. And if the child is speaking Spanish but in an English class, then you need to have bilingual personnel or psychologists to do this. So it's slow, it has changed, but I still get a case that was labeled mentally retarded, now called intellectually disabled. He was not. And he stayed in special ed for 4 years. So when I reassessed him, then I know he's learning disabled. And the issue is very tricky, even for me. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, to determine is the language, the lack of language or the lack of reading and writing due to a language issue, meaning a second language issue, or a true learning disability.
Because when you say 4 years, that's the scary part.
It is.
You get mislabeled, misidentified, and nobody fixes it in 6 months or 12 months. It takes years. Often, a kid will get to 6th grade before somebody will realize, wait a minute, we've been slow walking this kid's education when that wasn't his problem at all.
Right. And maybe even if they're correctly identified, maybe the services are not adequate because they don't have bilingual professionals who could, or teachers who could really start them off learning the phonemes, you know, which are the smallest language, pieces of language. There are many more in English than in Spanish, and there could be a lot of confusion between the sounds of both languages as far as when you read and write. So if you don't know those things, it's hard to really diagnose it properly. And a lot of children, and this has happened many years ago, there was a big lawsuit in California because a lot of Hispanic children were being identified as mentally retarded when they were not. So it has improved. We have better tools. We have much better cognitive tests. When I started, there weren't any in Spanish. Now there are. But even for autism, we don't have behavior checklists in Spanish. So those are usually administered to the parent and to the teacher. So I have to translate informally the tool. How valid is that? I have to write, well, it could be invalid. So we still have a long way to go. But as I said, it takes somebody who really knows the culture, the language issues, and the type of treatment that the child needs. For autism, it's, you know, in a way, it's easier to tell because of the stereotype behaviors and the lack of social interaction, you know, the lack of eye contact, and the fact that they don't interact with their peers in playtime and things like that. But with learning disabilities, it's a lot trickier because of what I said about language.
You know, Mary, through much of the program, we've been talking about school systems, public health systems, as if they are likely to be unresponsive or getting in your way. But if somebody is working with you, what's the best outcome? If you've got a child who's somewhere in the autism range and they're of school age, what's a good outcome look like?
Oh, I don't want to leave viewers with the idea that there's no hope. There's a tremendous amount of hope. Recovery is possible. When you put a kid on the spectrum in the right learning environment, they learn to read, they learn to speak, they learn social skills. These are people who are often brilliant in certain areas, but they really do need special education. So we need, in addition to our remarkable parent community, we really do need the government to step in and say, this is an emergency. We need that.
But if you're heavily burdened by autism, is the best setting for that to happen at home, in a school with other kids just like you, or in your community school?
I think it's very individual, and I think it really depends on what's available in the school, the family's needs, and we really have to recognize there is great individuality in this spectrum and in this epidemic.
Are there enough bright spots for you to sit here, because we're about to end the program, and say, no, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, because much of the program has been pretty dire. I got to tell you, it's been pretty grim.
Right. There's tremendous reasons to be optimistic when you have a child with autism about that child's potential and the great things he or she can bring into your life. I am not, however, optimistic today in April 2010 that the supports families need are anywhere near being delivered. But I will tell any family out there that we are committed to fight for those, and we will not stop until every family is supported.
And given what's going on today, given the coming together of activists from around the country, the militating for more research dollars and all that, do you feel like America's finally wrapping its head around the need to go to work on this?
I do believe the American people have completely supported us, and our understanding and awareness is high. And in the private sector, I see amazing spots of hope. But with a complex, lifelong condition, you are going to need public services to support, especially in minority and poor communities. So cautiously optimistic, but still fighting.